It never fails to amaze me, the moon. Just how it always seems to have this hold on us humans. Like
Yeah.
we look up and it's there and we feel like it's got all these secrets just whispering them down to us.
Yeah.
But we can't quite make them out, you know. Well, on that note, today we're traveling back in time a bit, back to the 17th century, to check out the moon as seen through the eyes of Johannes Kepler. Now, he's an astronomer, big deal, obviously. But he wasn't afraid to get kind of mystical, too, you know, blend those ideas in with the science.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting mix for sure. I mean, Kepler laid so much of the groundwork for how we understand the planets and how they move around, but he was also living in a time when people didn't draw such a hard line between what we think of as science and magic, I guess you could say.
Right. Yeah, and that leads us into the source material we're going to be diving into today. Kepler's book called Somnium. That means the dream. And this isn't some dry scientific paper. It's a whole fictional story, a journey to the moon, basically, where you can see Kepler bringing together like his hardcore scientific mind and his totally wild imagination.
Right. It's almost like we're getting a glimpse into how a super bright scientist like him used what they knew back then to tackle these huge questions about the universe, using the tools they had, so to speak.
I like that. So, all right, let's get into it. How does this lunar adventure actually kick off? I'm guessing we're not talking spaceships here, right?
Not exactly, no. It's a lot more, how do I put it, otherworldly. The story starts with this guy named Duracotus, and his path to becoming an astronomer, oh man, let me tell you, it was a weird one, ends up studying under Tycho Brahe, which, if you're into history, you'll know that's a real person, a famous astronomer. So that mentorship basically sets the stage for this whole trip to the moon that Duracotus takes.
Interesting. Okay, and here's where it starts to get, let's just say, a little mystical. Duracotus' mom, Fiolxhilde, she's a pretty important character. She's got this connection to beings Kepler calls demons.
Yeah, it's important to note those demons aren't like the evil ones we think of. More like forces of nature is a better way to think about them, I think. See, Kepler believed the whole universe was filled with this stuff called ether, an invisible substance. And these demons, they supposedly controlled how that ether flowed around, which meant they influenced everything from how the planets moved to, you guessed it, travel to the moon.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'm starting to get how this all comes together, but so how does this trip to the moon actually work? Like, what's the plan, logistically speaking? What's Kepler's idea here?
He gets surprisingly specific. Yeah, he lays out this whole trip, 50,000 miles to the moon, which even today is pretty intense. He even figures it'd take about 4 hours to get there. But of course, there are some catches. Sedation, big time sedation, is a must. And sunlight. Oh boy, sunlight is a huge no-no for those ether-controlling demons.
So it's this crazy mix of what we'd consider scientific thinking and, pure magic. Really shows you what it was like back then, how people saw the world. So what's waiting for Duracotus on the moon? What does this Levania actually look like when he gets there?
Kepler describes two main landscapes. One, he calls it Privolva. It's always dark. He even suggests there could be life forms there that have adapted to living in total darkness. And then there's Subvolva, the side that's always facing Earth.
Wow, I can't even imagine seeing Earth from way out there. It'd be like those pictures we have today taken from space of Earth as this little blue dot. But this was hundreds of years before anyone could actually do that.
It's true. And remember, this whole thing comes from Kepler's scientific understanding of the universe. He's not just making up a fairy tale. He's trying to figure out, can we travel to the moon? How would it work? What would it be like? He even imagines Levania as having life all over it, but life that can survive the extreme conditions there, like a world of total extremes where things might live and die and come back to life super fast because of the intense sun and the quick changes between day and night.
Mind-blowing. It's just amazing the kind of creativity and the science he brings together. But then, out of nowhere, Duracotus is back on Earth. Boom, journey over. Just like that. Makes you wonder, was it all a dream, a vision, or something completely different?
Right. And that's what makes Somnium so cool to think about. What was going on in Kepler's head? Was he messing around with ideas, or did he actually believe there was some deeper meaning behind his lunar story? It's hard to know for sure, but one thing's for sure. Somnium had a huge impact. It's considered one of the earliest examples of science fiction. There are things in it that you see pop up again in sci-fi books and movies hundreds of years later.
Right, so it's like he planted this seed, this idea of space travel all mixed up with science and mystical stuff. And from that seed, this whole genre, this whole way of thinking about space and what's out there, it just grew and grew.
And one thing that really stands out to me is how Somnium reflects the science of its time. Take the ether, for example. Back then, everyone thought that stuff was real. Later on, science proved that wasn't the case at all.
Right, yeah, great point. Kepler was working with the best information he had. Even though some of his ideas turned out to be wrong, it doesn't make his imagination any less amazing, or his drive to understand the universe. Somnium isn't just a story, it's like a testament to how curious we humans are and how much we've always been drawn to the moon.
Absolutely. I mean, for centuries, we've looked up at the moon and wondered, what's up there? Is there anyone else looking back at us? It's a question that I think continues to capture our imaginations even today.
No doubt. So here's something to chew on. If we could do what Kepler did, take our own trip to the moon today, what mysteries would we want to solve? What would we discover that would blow our minds, make us question everything, or even inspire us? It's a question worth thinking about the next time you find yourself looking up at that big silver disk in the night sky.